Morning, good morning. Morning, Rabbi. Good morning, everybody. I muted you all, and you can unmute yourself as you need. We're about to start Daf Yud Amid Base. The 5 lines from the top, 6 lines from the top. So about 10 lines from the top. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Bar Machasya, Amar Rav Chama Bar Kuria, Amar Rab. Hanosei Atana L'Chavero Tzarach Le'Edia. When somebody gives a gift to another person, he has to notify him. Rashi says 2 reasons for that. One, because maybe they'll be embarrassed to receive the gift. They think that someone is giving them the gift because they're missing this thing, and so it doesn't. You give someone a pair of socks. It's because your socks have holes in it. It's embarrassing. So if you give them in advance notice and tell them, here's a gift I'm giving you, they'll be less shy and embarrassed to receive it. Rashi says another reason on the basis that when you give somebody a gift, besides for the need that you're filling for them, the purpose is to add ahava, love, and achva, and shalom, and reis, peace. And this is a connection to previous Gemara as well, where the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is shalom. If we're doing a kindness, a gift to someone else, and you're adding shalom to the world, you're adding ahava, you have to let the other one know so that they can build their ahava towards you. And so it's important to let them know that you've given them a gift.
Isn't there an aspect of, I mean, a gift is has consequences in property rights and in everything else. Isn't there a point that, I mean, if you give someone a gift, it has to be official.
If you give them a gift, what?
It has to be official, I would think. I mean, there's got to be some kind of a transfer of property and an establishment that this is a gift.
For sure, there's an aspect, if it's a type of gift that requires a recipient. The Maral says that. A complete gift is something that the recipient is also officially recognizes. There's a lack in the gift when the recipient is not doesn't understand the transaction. But Rashi says that the reason is 2 things. One, that he shouldn't be embarrassed, and 2, and this a lot of Rishonim learn. This is the main point of this Gemara is that the purpose of the gift is to add ava, achva, shalom, reis, love, and care and peace, and that requires knowledge of the gift. 1 second, I'm going to draw out my coffee. Didn't have coffee yet. Michael's giving out coffee. Everybody can have. I mean, he's besides for the porridge he's eating, he's also giving coffee out to everyone. Okay, so if you give somebody a gift, you have to let them know. Shenema, for it says, Lada'as ki ani Hashem HaKadosh. Hashem says in regards to Shabbos, you need to, I'm giving you Shabbos so that you may know I am Hashem who makes you holy. So Hashem is saying, you need to know that I'm the one gifting you this. I'm giving you this bracha of Shabbos. Tanya, now indeed we have a brisa like this statement in the Rav Bar Machasya. L'das ki ani Hashem, to know that I am Hashem, mekadishchem. What does it mean? Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Matana tova yesh li bebeis genazai. Brian, we are on Yudam base, about 10 lines in. I have a great gift. Matana tova, I have a very good gift in my storehouses, in my house of treasures. Shabbos Shema, and it's called Shabbos. I want to give it to Yisrael. Lech v'hodiyam. Go and tell them. That's what it means, ladas. They have to know that I have a gift and how great the gift is. And the Gemara later is going to tell us that the greatness of the gift is the schar, the reward of Shabbos. Because Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. A lot of depth to this teaching, and a lot of Torah has been said about it. But for now, what the pshat, Hashem is saying, go tell Bnei Yisrael that I want to give them a precious gift that I have, and it's in my storehouses, and you have to let them know. Also, if you give a piece of bread, you give something good to a child, you have to let the mother know, as Rashi says in Beitza, in order so that the parents recognize, and again, to increase their chiba and reus Yisrael, to increase the love and brotherhood amongst you. So my avidly, so what should you do in order to let the parent know that you give them a piece of bread? You put some oil on their forehead and some eye makeup on their eye. So you can't do that anymore because parents are going to be concerned that you're doing sorcery with their child, or nowadays it was parents will call the police on you, child protection services. So my Amar of Papa shoif le ma'isiami. You take a little bit of the bread that you gave them and put some crumbs on their face. So the mother will say, "Who gave you bread?" And they'll say, "So and so." Very nice. They're adding love and peace and friendship. Gemara says, Chanina says that if you give a gift to a friend, you do not need to notify them. Moshe had no idea that and this is in last week's parsha, Moshe had no idea that his face was glowing, and that there was a gift he had received of or of illumination. When Hashem spoke to him, it depends. If everybody's going to know it anyhow, you don't have to boast and say, "Hey, I gave this to you." But if the person may not know, you have to tell them. So it depends on whether they're going to figure it out anyhow. Then if you tell them, then it's boasting. And if they don't know, that's where you're telling them is going to be assisting in creating more ava and more achva and more shalom. So Tues points out also that there's another time you don't tell, even if it's not going to be known, and that's by tzedakah. Of course, when a person's going to be embarrassed by the receiving of this gift, receiving of this tzedakah, then the greatest form of tzedakah is when they don't know who gave it to them, so they don't feel embarrassed by everyone else. They're just happy with the tzedakah they receive. However, if it's a gift that they won't be embarrassed by, it is important that they know. The Gemara says, what's the distinction? The Gemara says whether they're going to find out or not. Well, Shabbos, they would have found out anyhow the greatness of Shabbos. Since Shabbos, it's true, you would know how great Shabbos is. We experience it every week. The bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us the time to connect with Hashem and connect with the world He's given without the need to pursue more. That's a tremendous bracha. So we know that anyhow. But the schar, the me'ein olam haba, the world to come, that is not included in what we'll know. Rav Chisda had a nugget b'yodei tarti matna sebetu. Rav Chisda, who was a kohen, had received 2 matanas from Zerah L'chayayim Makeba. Halacha is, and we saw this in Chulin and at the end of Gemaras, that when somebody shechts an animal, he has to give a kohen Zerah, the forearm, L'chayayim, the cheeks, Makeba, and one of the stomachs. And that's a gift to a kohen for everybody. Now, Rashi brings over here, as Rashi brought over there, that the halacha is Chutz La'aretz, we don't do that. But and even though Rav Chisda was in Chutz La'aretz, he was in Babel, but somebody gave him two of the Zerach L'Chayim Keva, and now he had these two gifts. But even though, as opposed to Teruma, where only a kohen is allowed to eat it, Zerach L'Chayim Keva, even a non-kohen are allowed to eat. So he has these. He made a deal. He was a student of Rav, and he said, whoever has a good teaching of Rav that they can give me and they can teach me, if it's new to me, I'll give you one of these Zerah L'Chayim Keva. It was some. Amar Kol Man Isle V'Amar Lishmait Echat V'Shmeit Rav Yehivin Alei Niyalei. Anybody that has a teaching of Rav that's new, will give it to me. Amar Rav Bar Machasi Ach Amar Rav Anisam Matan Chavedet Tzarach Adiyah. So he taught him this teaching from Rav, that if you give a gift to somebody, you have to notify them. Shenemar, as it says, Lodaski Ani Hashem Mekadeshchem, so that you should know that I am Hashem, the one who makes you holy. So you have to know that Hashem is the one that gave you the gift. Yavani, so he gave him the one. Amar Chavivin Alach Shmaited Rav. So he said to Rav Chisda, the teachings of Rav are so important to you, so precious to you. Kulai, Amalein. He said, yeah. Amalei Hainadam Rav. You know, this reminds me of another teaching Rav said, that Milza al Vishayu Yakiv, a nice garment on the one who owns it, the one who's wearing it, it's very precious. The person likes his own thing. So you're a student of Rav, so it's so precious to you to have the teachings of Rav. Amalei Amar Rav Hachi. This is what Rav said. Wow. That's even a better teaching to me than the first teaching he gave. If I had another gift to give you, I would have given it to you. The idea that somebody would want the teaching of his teacher more than someone else is indeed to a degree peculiar, because if it's Torah that you seek, if you want the teaching of Torah, so what difference does it make? I think the idea is the idea with the garment. It fits you well, and it's more comfortable with you. It fits with you more than another garment. Once you've worn it, so the person who's wearing it, it's more precious than when you have a teacher who's taught you much of Torah. So then that path, that mahalach, that idea is something that is precious to you because it fits. It sits well with the rest of the teachings of Torah that you have. V'amar Rav Bar Machasya. So we're teaching from Rav Bar Machasya. We have another teaching from Rav Bar Machasya. Amar Rav Chama Bar Yira, Amar Rav La'olam Al Yeshana Adam Beinoi Bein Abanim. A person should never distinguish between his children and give one more than the other. Because of fine material, fine wool that Yaakov gave to Yosef, worth 2 shekel. More than the rest of the children, they became jealous. And it led all the way down to the Yoga was in Mitzrayim, and our ancestors had to go down to Mitzrayim in slavery. Amar Ramachasi, another teacher, Ramachasi, Amar Rav and Rav of the Choma Bar Yura, Amar Rav, La'olam Michaza Adam Yeshu B'Yirshi Yeshivas HaKreva. If you have a choice, you should always try and live in a city that is newly built. Shematach Yeshivas HaKreva, Avan Asam, because if the city is a newer city, then its sins are less than a place that has a more history. Shenamar Hini Noah Ha'ir Hazaz Koreva Lamas. Lot is running away from Sidon, and it tells the angels, "Take us to this city. It's close and it's small." Koreva Lamas Shama, it's close to run away. Vihi Mitzar, and it's small. So the Gemara says, "What do you mean? It's close and it's small." The Malachim can see that too. If it's close and small, my kreva, Ilima kreva, the mikreva, that it's close by, Mizuta, and it's small, Lakachazava. They're looking at that city, they can tell that it's small and close. Elemental Shishvasa kreva. Kreva means it's newer. and therefore it's small and has lesser sins. And so running away from Sodom, he said, perhaps take me to this city because it is newer and less sin, has less sin. And how do we know that it was a newer city? Except for it says of Maltano Shama, he says Na is 51, and Rashi gives a calculation of when Sodom would have been built and when Mitzar would have been built, and that Mitzar was 51 years old as a city, and then Na is Gematria 51, Nun Machat. The Sodom Nun base, and Sodom was 52 years old, as Rashi's calculation is. V'shalvasa chava, and it was peaceful for 26 years. It was a peaceful city. Because the last 12 years, after 26 years, 12 years they were colonized or conquered by the war with Kedar and another 13 years, Marad, they rebelled against him. So that's a total of 25 years. So that 26 years of peace. And in the 14th year was the battle. So that's a total of 52. We are now in Yud Aleph Amar Aleph, 3 lines from the top. Amar Rabba B'Machasya Amar Rav Chama Bar Yira Amar Rav Kol Ir Shagagosea Gevoim Beis HaKnesses L'Seif Charim. A city that the buildings are taller than the shuls, so you're making people's private homes taller than the shul, you're making it greater, and that's a disgrace to the shul. We're talking about the high-risers, we're talking about the houses themselves are taller than the shul, so you're making the shul less nice, less majestic. So then it'll be destroyed. Shimon says, "L'romin is basically to elevate the house of Hashem, and then to reestablish the ruins." So you see that the establishment of the ruins happens when you elevate the house of Hashem. Not only in regards to the houses themselves, the ruins, Aval Kashkushi, the Avruri, but in the bell towers and in other towers they have. Less than, but that's not a problem. Amar Rav Ashi, I was the reason that Mas Mechasi was not destroyed, because I didn't allow them to build their houses taller than the shul. So Gemara says, "Honey, what are you talking about?" But it did get destroyed. Yeah, you're right, but not because of that. Even though it was destroyed, it wasn't destroyed on account of that. I'm not sure what great yichus that is. That it was destroyed, but not on account of that. And the Gemara is saying that this is what caused it to be destroyed in any case. And another teaching of Rabbi B'Machasya Marav, Chama Bar Yira Marav, Tachas Yishmael Tachas Nachri. If you need to work for someone, make sure you choose a Yishmaelite rather than an Edomite, rather than Arab rather than Roman. Tachas Nachri, Tachas Chaver, work for a Roman rather than working for a Chaver. Rashi says it's a form of, it's one of the Persian groups. Tues says it's a non-Persian invader of Persia. Either way, they were very harsh and dangerous people. So Tachas Chaver v'lei Tachas Talmid Chacham, and yet it is better to work for a Chaver than to work for a Talmid Chacham, because if you work for a Talmid Chacham, you're in danger of disrespecting him. And if you disrespect him, then the Torah is going to take revenge on you. And Tachas Talmid Chacham v'lei Tachas Yasam Almana, and it's better to work for a Talmid Chacham than to work for a Yasam Almana, an orphan and a widow, because Hashem takes care of them. And if you're unkind to them, if in any way you cause them to cry, and they cry easily because of their pain, the danger in mistreating them is tremendous. It seems like just cute advice here, but the Maral says actually what we're looking at over here is a a three-part in distinctions. Yishmael is just distinct from us, but they're not anti-us, and therefore, the working for them is the difficulty is in somebody that is distinct and different. Whereas the Edomites are actually in opposition to Yisrael, and therefore that opposition is a much harsher distinction. The Chaver is not only distinct or anti, but they are they fight us. They don't want us to exist. A Talmud Chacham is the contrary. It is the very essence of who we are, and that's the harshest, because it's the essence of who we are, and we're not living up to who we ought to be. Any ailment, but not a stomach ailment. Any aches, but not a heartache. That's the worst. Any soreness, but not a headache. Anything that goes bad, but not have a bad relationship with your wife. The essence of the home, the essence of serenity in one's life will come from a good relationship with their wife, and if they don't have that, then that is in the worst of the raw of bad situations. If all seas were ink, and the swamps were and the reeds and swamps were pens or what are feathers or quills? Thank you, quills. I don't have
Styluses.
Sorry?
Like a stylus.
Stylus, a quill. And if all the heavens were parchment, and all humans were scribes, it would not be enough to write the vast power that government has. From which verse do we know this? The heavens up high, and the earth down below, and the hearts of kings know that have no depth to how much to investigate. This is now talking about the deep state. What this is talking about is the idea that Hashem empowers history, and Hashem empowers so much of such a great effect on human life and people within the government. And so we cannot, we must recognize the vast ability that is given to a government. And the Mishnah says, having for the peace of a country. And look at what's going on, right? If you have a lack of peace, and all of a sudden people are swallowing each other over a piece of toilet paper. I mean, it's absurd, but the idea is that there is so much that has to go right, and the effects of government on the world and on a country is so vast that we couldn't write that, and it's a form of Hashem's governance of the world by giving direction and power to the leaders of a community, in this case, government. Va'amar Rava b'Machasya Amar Rav Chama bar Yira Amar Rav Yafatainas l'chalon ke'esh l'noris. A fast day is helpful to a bad dream, like fire is to sawdust. It can consume it. And so if somebody had a bad dream and they are concerned by the dream, then they should fast on that day, and that fast will remove the power of that dream as we saw at the end of brachas, if somebody interprets a dream or somebody is actually believing in a dream and concerned about it, that it could take effect, and so they should fast to get rid of it. If somebody's not bothered by it, and somebody doesn't utter a word about it, then it's not a problem. I'm telling Gemara in brachas that there's also a way of doing hatavas chalom. That if you had a bad dream, you can have people interpret it good. You could say, go to a base thing of 3, and they will say, Tavahu v'tava lahevi. It is a good dream, and it'll be good. And there's a way, there's a tefillah and a system to say. Amar of Kista, Bobiyon. It has to be on that very day that you fast. Vamar of Yisro Filo b'Shabbos, and even on Shabbos. Now on Yontif, there's a discussion whether you're allowed to fast, because in Yontif there's a mitzvah of simcha, and simcha pertains to eating. Whereas on Shabbos there's a mitzvah of oneg, which is pleasure. Pleasure, you can fast and it's a pleasure if you don't want to eat, if you don't have an appetite. There's a pleasure in not eating. So Shabbos you can fast, Yontif is going to be different. Or Yishuv Bereder of Idi Ikla Abei Rav Ashi. He came to Rav Ashi, and he made for him a wonderful dish, the best of calves. Calves meat is young, it's a young bovine, it's good. But the third one is the fattiest, the healthiest. Third one of its mother. Amar lei litamami. He said, "Look, I made you a delicious dish. Eat some." Amar lehu b'tainis as if he said, "I'm sorry, I'm fasting." Don't you follow the opinion that you can borrow the fast and complete it another day, pay it back another day? In other words, you don't have to fast today. Even if you accepted upon yourself a fast day today, you can move it to another day. You can borrow it, as it were, and pay it back another day. Tosis later in the Masechta asks a question: How can you say that? The Gemara later says that there's a specific tefillah to add to the Amida when you're fasting. You have to always say Aneinu and Mincha. And Tosis says the reason is because maybe you will have broken the fast, so you don't say it in the morning. But the Chazan said it in the morning. In any case, there's a bracha, there's a tefillah, a bracha to say on a fast day. And if you're fasting, how can you say it and then borrow the fast, as a word, and change it to another day? In any case, he said, don't you think that you can move the fast? He said, no, you can't do that. It is a fast on account of a bad dream I had. That a fast is good for a dream, like fire is to sawdust. And it's on that day. And you have, even on Shabbos, you're going to fast. And so I don't want to push off the fast. I want to fast today, and so I'm not going to eat. The word na'aris, by the way, is the remnants of flax when you beat it down to turn it into linen. In either case, the idea is that fire consumes it quickly, and so too a fast day will consume a bad dream and turn it into a bracha. So back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that you don't have to stop your work for davening. And then it says you stop for Shema, but you don't stop for davening. So what's the repetition of you don't stop for davening? Just say, but you do stop for Shema. We just said you just said that you don't have to stop for davening. So why do you then repeat it again? You stop for Shema, but you don't stop for davening. And the Gemara says, "Say for us on the divrei Torah." The end is coming to tell you divrei Torah. The Tani will learn chaverim shayeleskim Torah. Talmidei Chachamim who is studying Torah, mafsikim l'krishma, they must stop in order to say Shema. They mafsikim l'tefillah, but they don't stop for davening. If you remember the Gemara in Brachas, the Gemara Brachas said that the Rebbe stopped for Shema, and Rav asked Reb Chia, I didn't see him say Shema. They said when he put his hand over his eyes, he had said Shema. So during his teaching, they used to have a matargim, somebody who would speak, who would repeat what the teacher had said so that people could hear it. He had a voice that projected, and that at that moment, Rebbe put his hand for a moment on Shema, on his eyes, and he said the Shema. So you see, middle of learning, he said the Shema. But for davening, you don't have to stop. Rabbi Yochanan says it's not relevant to us. It's only Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and his colleagues that their Torah was like their work. They did it diligently without any stopping. But for us, we do stop for both Shema and davening. You can't say, I'm not going to stop my learning because davening came. Well, stop your learning because you got a text. You can stop your learning because you got a phone call. You can stop your learning because you decide you want a coffee. But for davening, you're not going to stop. So it's not a relevant thing to us. But the concept, conceptually, and this is the Gemara that we saw earlier, and the davening, in a certain sense, is chayesha. It's asking for assistance in the here and now. And Torah is netzach. Torah is eternal. The time we study Torah brings us to eternity, and that it stays with us for eternity, and that's Chaye Olam. And therefore, the idea is that essentially Torah is a greater connection to Hashem. Connecting to Hashem through Torah is a greater connection than connecting through Tefillah. But as we saw, what I said earlier in yesterday's daf, that was it Rav Nuna? Rav Nuna said that he was lengthy in his davening, even though that it cut into his learning time. He said because davening time is davening time, and learning time is learning time. The Gemara asks, well, what about the brisa that says that we don't stop for Shema, just as we don't stop for davening? That's not when you're learning. That's when they were in the Beis Din was sitting together and working on whether or not to lengthen the year. And that was a system that took a lot of calculation to work out whether or not the spring is going to come, because it's based upon Nisan being in Ovid. The Torah says that the first Chodesh Pesach is going to be in Ovid in the spring, and so we have to make sure that the Tekufa, the period of the period of Nisan, is going to be in the springtime, and it takes a lot of calculations to know which year to add a second Adar. Now we have a system that's already set in place and non-movable, but it used to be calculated every time, and that was a big calculation. And if they were in the midst of that calculation, that difficult calculation, you wouldn't stop for davening or for Shema. Amar Rav Ava Chintana Sabed Dagrunya. Amar Rav Elazar Tzadik Kashay Yino Eskim Ibra Shana B'Yavne. When we were involved in figuring out the extension of the year, adding its second Adar in the Academy of Yavne, we've not stopped for Shema, for davening. We didn't stop for anything. Once we started, we were involved in that. And we didn't stop. The Mishnah. So all of this previous Mishnah was on account of this Mishnah. You're not allowed to walk around, a tailor may not walk around with his needle in his garment before Shabbos. Now, I say in his garment, but really it's not a normal way of carrying it. And if he will have forgotten that it's there, then he actually will not transgress, because in any case, carrying needs machshava, needs intent from the start. You won't have that, right? So Tues says that that's a gzeira l'gzeira. So we're talking about that he's carrying it in his hand, because otherwise, if he put it into his garment before Shabbos, if somebody put his pencil on his ear before Shabbos, and he forgot that it's there, he walked out in public domain, he didn't actually do anything, because as we saw, you need a meleches machshavas, the intent of uprooting it and taking it, and he doesn't even know it's there, so there can't be an meleches machshavas, so that even though it's still usher, it's still prohibited, but to make a gzera, to make a prohibition on Friday, don't put something in your garment because maybe you're going to forget and you're going to carry it on Shabbos, but that carrying you don't know about anyhow, and that's going to be a derabanan. But others say, no, the idea is maybe you'll remember you have it and you'll be in a public domain. And since it's a part of your work, you're going to, it's going to be hard for you to just toss it. And so you're going to carry it in, and that's going to be too hard to not do. So don't put it in on Friday into your garment, because lest on Shabbos you remember you have it and you're in a public domain and you're going to continue walking or start walking to back to your house to bring it in, because you don't want to lose your work materials. Similarly, maybe you're going to forget God. And also a scribe should not walk out with his pen, with his stylus, with his quill. Additionally, don't smoke your garment to to kill the lice that are in your clothing. Also on Shabbos, don't read in front of a candle, because if you read in front of a candle, it may not be light enough, and you may tilt the candle in order to see the text. And if you do so, you're going to end up increasing the flame or diminishing the flame, and that would either be making a fire or extinguishing a fire. Amru, however, they said, the Emes Amru, but yet the halacha is that hachazan roya hechen tinuk is kard. But either the teacher or the reader in the shul is allowed to look at where the children are reading in front of a candle, and the children are allowed to read in front of the candle, as we'll see in the Gemara. And so the teacher is allowed to look into where they're up to based on the children, not in his own book, but in theirs, or the chazan wants to know what the parsha of the week is. And to practice what he's going to read in the shul the next day, he's going to look at where the kids are up to in order to read. And that he's allowed to do in front of them. But he himself should not read. Similarly, we see another fence put in case somebody will touch something else or do something else, is that not to eat a zav and a zava should not eat together, because eating a meal together is romantic, and they may lead to one thing will lead to the next, and therefore they shouldn't even eat together without some sort of hecker, as the Gemara tells us elsewhere. The Gemara is going to tell us that we have some sort of hecker, some distinction to remind them that they are that it shouldn't be overly romantic. A person should not be in the private domain and drink from a public domain. So you're in your private domain, and there is water in the Rosh Hashanah. Don't lean over out in the Rosh Hashanah and drink. Or vice versa, Rosh Hashanah, or vice versa. Why? Because maybe you're going to carry it over to the other domain, and if you do so, you will transgress. Tues says, Tues asks, why isn't the water itself? Not because you're going to bring the vessel back, but because when you're drinking, you're actually carrying the water from where it is, and in your body, you're bringing it into the other domain, and that itself is carrying it over. And then Tues says, well, maybe there's no hanacha inside, it's not resting inside of you, or that doesn't count as a dalet. Interesting discussion of Tues. In any case, the Brisa says, don't drink in another domain while you're in one domain. Don't drink from another domain, because you may actually carry it back to you. But if you move yourself almost entirely into the other space where your head and your torso is in the other domain, so there you're drinking water, then it's no problem because you're not going to carry it because your whole body is basically in the other domain. And similarly by a wine press. So Gemara is going to explain what is also by a wine press. What about if you're not drinking out of a public domain and you're a private domain, or vice versa, but rather it's in a carmelis, it's in this in-between space? Abai says, yeah, same rules apply. Rava disagrees. He gufa gzera. There's no issue itself in drinking. It's a gzera. It's a fence. Maybe if you're drinking here, you may bring it from the other space. You may bring it over. So it's a gzera. Well, we also have another gzera, a gzera of the space itself of a carmelis is not asur d'oraisa. It's not a Torah prohibition. It's a rabbinic prohibition because it's an open space. It looks like and acts like a public domain. It's accessible to others, and it doesn't have. It's not enclosed based on its size. So it acts like a public domain. It's acting like a Rishus HaRabim. It looks like it, and we think of it as a Rishus HaRabim. And therefore, Chazal said, you're not allowed to carry from there to a private domain, or vice versa. And well, if that's the case, you have a double gzera. First of all, don't carry from a public don't carry from the carmelis into your own space, because lest maybe you'll think of it as a public domain. You're going to carry in a public domain as well. A. B, even don't drink while you're in a private domain, or from a public domain, because maybe you're going to lean over into that other domain. Well, that's a gzera itself. So now you have a double gzera. A gufa gzera, it itself, the public domain, the carmelis itself is a gzera. But anan nekim gzera. Now you want to go ahead and make another gzera, a double fence, a fence to a fence, a gzera to gzera. So it can't be. So Abai says, well, I can prove it to you. How do I know that this is true? That even in a carmelis, you're not allowed to drink from it. Tell me, because we learned because it says also in a wine press, my gas. But what's that? What's that talking about? Is the wine press a private domain, meaning that it has 10 tfachim and 4x4, so it's its own domain. Tanina, that's already said. We said you can't lean over into a private domain from a public domain, or vice versa. Is it in the public domain? Tanina, we learned that too. Elalav carmelis must be that it's in between space. It's a carmelis, and it says nevertheless you can't lean over and drink from it. Rava Amar Rava says no, and so too in the wine press. It's not talking about Shabbos, and it's not talking about the prohibition that maybe it's a different domain, the isser of leaning into another domain and drinking, because maybe you're going to carry from one domain to another. Rather, it's talking about something else. It's talking about the prohibition of meiser, of eating from something, drinking from something that hasn't been tied. Meiser hasn't been taken. So the halacha is that you don't have to tithe if you are taking just a nibble, a snack. So somebody's harvesting grapes, even though he hadn't tithed yet, he hasn't taken meiser, he's allowed to take achilas ara. You can take a grape and just eat it. So too in the wine press, he's not obligated in meiser until the work is complete. When is the work complete? Once it's gone down to the pit after the press, it goes down to a pit where it's going to ferment and sit for a while, and that's the completion, and that's when you're obligated in meiser. But prior to that, you can eat, not a proper drinking or eating, but you're allowed to take a nibble. And also, similarly, he says, the Rabbi says that's what this is talking about. If you're going to lean over and take a sip out of your gas, out of your press, of wine, it's just juice at the time, and the concern is that you may actually take a full amount, and therefore you're also not to do that. That's what it means. The Tanan, as we learn, Meir says you can drink from the wine, from the press, even if you add some hot water, which they would do to dilute the wine, or vice versa. Or even if, which then you can still pour it back because it's not going to ferment it, or cold water. And Rabbi Tzvi says, no, you have to tithe it first. And Rabbi Lezer, let's just finish this line, and the Chachamim say, no, it depends. If it's hot water that you diluted it with, which means that you can still put it back, so then you're chayiv, because that's you intend to be a part of it. But cold, which you're not going to put back, sorry, the other way around. Hot water, if you dilute it in hot water, you're not going to put it back, and therefore that's you've taken it properly from the press, and so you are obligated in tithing it, and you can't drink it until you tithe, until you take meiser. Whereas in the cold water, where you can still pour it back into the press of whatever's left, so you're going to take a sip and you're going to toss it back into the press. So therefore, that's achilas harai, that's just a nibble, and therefore you're allowed to toss it back, and you're not obligated in the meiser. So Rava says back again, here we're not talking about Shabbos, and indeed a carmelist would be offense to offense, a gzera to gzera, and we wouldn't say that it's prohibited to drink from a carmelist space into your private space, into your shusayachid. And what are we talking about when we say that that you can't drink from the wine press? That's about meiser, and it's a question of whether you're taking permanent kind of drinking because you put in something that doesn't allow you to toss it back, or vice versa. Hashikach, have a good davening and a great day. I'm going to try and send out an email later about changing the time of daf if people are working from home and have time after davening or at another time of the day. I'm going to send out a poll and ask people, but assume it's the same time tomorrow unless we make an announcement. Yashikar.
Thank you.